Maria Chen always felt drawn to the homeless man who saved her from muggers that cold Seattle night. Despite society's judgments, she followed her heart and agreed to marry him. As whispers and snickers filled their wedding reception, David stood up, hands trembling, holding a weathered envelope he'd carried for 15 years. When he started speaking, the room fell silent. What he revealed next left every guest in tears and changed Maria's life forever. The streets of downtown Seattle can be dangerous after dark. Maria Chen knew this, but as a nurse working late shifts at the hospital, she had little choice but to walk home on that autumn evening. The streetlights cast long shadows, and her footsteps echoed against empty buildings. The sound of rapid footsteps behind her made her heart race. Before she could react, two men approached her, demanding her purse. Maria clutched her bag tightly, frozen in fear. In that moment of terror, a figure emerged from the darkness. The man who appeared was clearly homeless, wearing layers of worn clothing, but there was something in the way he carried himself, a quiet dignity that made the muggers hesitate. Without saying a word, he positioned himself between Maria and her attackers. The would-be thieves exchanged glances before quickly retreating into the shadows. Maria's hands were still shaking as she turned to thank her rescuer. Despite his weathered appearance, his eyes held a gentleness that immediately put her at ease. She learned his name was David, and insisted on buying him coffee at a nearby diner to show her gratitude. What was meant to be a quick thank you turned into hours of conversation. David spoke with an eloquence that surprised her, sharing stories of his life on the streets while carefully avoiding the details of how he ended up there. He mentioned an accident years ago that left him with significant memory loss. But the way he described it felt distant, as if he were telling someone else's story. Maria found herself drawn to return to that same area of downtown. She would bring David hot meals and coffee, spending her breaks sitting with him on a bench in the small park where he often stayed. Despite having so little, he always shared whatever food he had with other homeless people in the area. His kindness touched her deeply. The day Maria told her parents about David, the comfortable atmosphere in their successful Chinese restaurant shattered. Her mother dropped a plate in shock, while her father's face darkened with disappointment. They couldn't understand how their daughter, a respected nurse with a promising future, could throw it all away on someone who lived on the streets. Their reaction was just the beginning. Word spread quickly through their close-knit community. Friends who had known Maria since childhood started avoiding her. Colleagues at the hospital whispered behind her back, but something inside Maria knew this connection with David was worth fighting for. Perhaps it was the way he could quote Shakespeare while helping her tend to his small garden, or how he would remember every detail of their conversations, even as his own past remained a mystery. There was an inexplicable familiarity about him that Maria couldn't shake, like a word stuck on the tip of her tongue. When David proposed, he did so with a ring made from a piece of sea glass he had polished smooth. Maria said yes without hesitation, even as she braced herself for the storm that would follow. Her parents threatened to disown her, but eventually agreed to attend the wedding, if only to maintain face in their community. The wedding day arrived with a tension that could be cut with a knife. David stood at the altar in a borrowed suit that didn't quite fit, his hands clean but bearing the permanent marks of life on the streets. Whispers and poorly concealed laughter rippled through the crowd as Maria's father walked her down the aisle, his face a mask of barely contained shame. The room fell silent as he began to speak. His voice, usually so steady, quivered with emotion as he explained that while trying to write his vows, something had stirred in his memory. The envelope he held had been in his pocket when he was found after his accident 15 years ago. Most of its contents were destroyed by water, but one name remained legible: Maria Chen. As David continued speaking, the color drained from Maria's face. He described a summer day at Lake Washington when they were both 12 years old. Maria had been swimming when she got caught in an unexpected current. David, who was nearby with his family, had jumped in to save her. The impact of hitting his head during the rescue had caused his memory loss. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room, but David wasn't finished. With tears streaming down his face, he revealed that his parents had been close friends with the Chens. They had spent years searching for their son, repeatedly visiting the lake where the accident occurred. During one such search in stormy weather, their car had skidded off the road. Neither had survived. Maria's parents stood frozen as recognition dawned on their faces. Memories came flooding back. Summer barbecues with David's family, joint celebrations of Chinese New Year, the devastating news of their friend's accident. All this time, the son they had mourned had been living just blocks away from their restaurant. Old family photos were quickly retrieved from the Chen's home nearby. The room fell completely silent as they were passed around, showing a young David with the same gentle eyes, standing alongside Maria at various family gatherings. Even without his memories, some force had kept him in the same neighborhood, unconsciously drawn to the connection he had lost. The wedding guests, who had been laughing earlier, now wiped away tears. The story of how David had saved Maria twice, once as a child and again from the muggers, without even knowing their shared history, touched every heart in the room. His wedding gift wasn't just the truth about his identity. It was the restoration of a bond that had survived despite incredible odds. Maria's father, who had barely looked at David all day, now embraced him as the son of his long-lost friend. Her mother couldn't stop crying as she cupped David's face in her hands, seeing in his features the boy she had known so many years ago. The reception transformed from an occasion marked by judgment into a celebration of an extraordinary homecoming. In the end, this wedding proved that some connections run deeper than memory, surviving years of separation and loss. David and Maria's story wasn't just about two people finding love. It was about healing old wounds, reuniting broken families, and proving that sometimes the heart remembers what the mind forgets. And you? Do you believe some connections are truly destined to find their way back to each other, no matter what obstacles stand in their way?